Ambassador Blake sat in his comfortable chair, looking at the glowing screens in the Concordat's main records room. The blue light from thousands of files made his green skin look pale. He was tired. 300 years of reading the same boring reports about the same quiet worlds would make anyone tired. He picked up his cup of hot drink and clicked on the next file. Sector 7749 Delta, he read aloud to himself. Also called the Terran Sector. Blake yawned. This was one of the most boring files in the entire database. The humans living on the third planet of that system were still using primitive technology. They had just learned to send radio signals into space about 200 years ago. Their cities were small, their ships could barely leave their own planet, and they still fought wars with simple weapons. Stupid creatures, Blake muttered, scrolling through old surveillance photos. The images showed the humans building basic rockets and satellites. They will need at least 500 more years before they can travel between stars. The Concordat had strict rules about primitive species. Do not contact them. Do not interfere with them. Let them develop naturally until they discover faster-than-light travel on their own. Only then could they join the Great Alliance of Civilized Worlds. Blake had been assigned to monitor 12 different sectors, but the Terran sector was his least favorite. Nothing ever happened there. The humans just kept doing the same boring things year after year. They worked in their factories, grew food on their farms, and occasionally launched tiny metal capsules into their local space. He opened the latest report from Commander Riley, who ran the small monitoring station at the edge of human space. Riley was a good officer, but even he seemed bored with this assignment. Report 4847, Blake read. No significant activity detected in the Terran system. Species remains pre-spaceflight. Population has grown to approximately 8 billion individuals. They have established small colonies on 2 nearby planets within their system, but these use only basic chemical propulsion. No signs of faster-than-light research or development. Recommend continued non-interference protocol. Blake signed the report without really reading the details. It was the same thing Riley had written for the past 50 years. The humans were exactly where everyone expected them to be, slowly crawling toward space travel like every other primitive species. The Concordat had more important things to worry about. The Hegemony Empire was expanding again, taking over small worlds on the outer rim. Pirates were attacking trade routes near the galactic core. 3 different species were fighting over mining rights in the Vega sector. Who had time to watch a bunch of primitives play with rockets? Blake's assistant, a young female from the bird-like Altair species, brought him more files to review. Sir, these are the priority reports from the active sectors. Thank you, Lucy, Blake said, setting aside the human file. Anything interesting happening in the real galaxy? Lucy's feathers ruffled with excitement. Oh yes, sir. The Hegemony just invaded another system. And there are reports of strange energy readings near the Kepler station. Blake's attention was immediately caught. Kepler station was one of their most remote outposts, sitting at the very edge of civilized space. Strange energy readings? What kind? The report just came in an hour ago, Lucy said, handing him a red priority file. Multiple unknown contacts moving at high speed. Captain Oliver is investigating. Blake forgot all about the humans as he opened the urgent report. This was real news. Unknown contacts meant either pirates with stolen technology, or possibly even a new species that had developed space travel. Either way, it was far more interesting than watching primitive humans launch their little tin cans into orbit. He spent the next hour reading about the mysterious signals near Kepler station. The energy patterns were unlike anything in the Concordat's databases. Whatever was out there was using technology that didn't match any known species. Probably just the Hegemony testing new weapons, Blake decided. Or maybe pirates using stolen ships. He filed the report and prepared to leave for the day. Tomorrow he would assign more investigators to look into the Kepler situation. As for the humans, they could wait another 50 years before their next review. Nothing interesting ever happened in the Terran sector anyway. Blake gathered his things and walked toward the door. Behind him, the screens continued glowing with thousands of files about thousands of worlds. The human file sat forgotten in the completed stack, marked "No action required" in bright green letters. Outside his office window, the lights of the Concordat's capital city twinkled like stars. Ships from hundreds of different worlds moved through the busy air traffic, carrying diplomats, traders, and travelers to every corner of the galaxy. The Great Alliance had brought peace and prosperity to 10,000 species across countless worlds. It was a good system, Blake thought as he walked to his transport. The strong species helped the weak ones develop. The primitive worlds were left alone until they were ready to join civilized society. Everyone knew their place and followed the rules. But sometimes rules were made to be broken. And sometimes the species you ignore are the ones you should watch most carefully. As Blake's transport carried him home through the busy city traffic, he had no idea that everything he thought he knew about the galaxy was about to change. The humans he had dismissed as primitive and boring had been busy during those quiet centuries. Very busy indeed. The Concordat expected continued silence from the third planet of System 7749 Delta. What they were about to hear instead was the sound of thunder rolling across the stars. The night shift at Kepler Station was usually the quietest time in the galaxy. Lieutenant Emma sat at her monitoring desk, watching the slow movement of distant stars on her screen. She was drinking her third cup of coffee and trying not to fall asleep when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. Warning sounds filled the air. Emma jumped up so fast that her coffee spilled across her control panel. "What is happening?" she shouted over the noise. Her computer screen was going crazy. Dozens of bright dots were appearing from nowhere, moving across space faster than anything she had ever seen. The energy readings were so high that her equipment could barely measure them. Captain Oliver ran into the control room wearing only his sleeping clothes and boots. His gray hair was messy and his eyes were wide with confusion. "Report," he yelled. "Sir, I am detecting multiple unknown contacts," Emma said, her voice shaking. "They just appeared out of nowhere. Look at these speed readings." Captain Oliver stared at the screen in disbelief. The unknown ships were moving at impossible velocities. According to his instruments, they were traveling faster than the best Concordat warships, but their energy signatures were completely wrong. "This cannot be right," he muttered. "Run a full diagnostic on all systems." "I already did, sir," Emma replied. "Everything is working perfectly. These contacts are real." More alarms started ringing. The station's computer voice began speaking in a calm tone that seemed crazy compared to the chaos around them. "Warning. Unidentified vessels detected. Warning. Energy weapons charging detected. Warning." Captain Oliver grabbed the communication device. "This is Kepler Station to all ships in the area. We have multiple unknown contacts approaching at high speed. Anyone who can assist, please respond immediately." Only silence answered him. On the screen, the mysterious ships were getting closer. Emma could see that they were huge, much larger than normal trading vessels or even military ships. But their design was wrong. Instead of the smooth, elegant curves that all civilized species used, these ships looked rough and blocky, like someone had built them with hammers and welding tools. "Sir," Emma whispered, "look at Sector 7. Captain Oliver turned to see what she was pointing at. In the distance, a group of red dots was moving toward the unknown ships. He recognized those energy signatures immediately. "Hegemony raiders," he said quietly. "A whole squadron of them." The hegemony ships were notorious throughout the galaxy. They attacked weak colonies, stole resources, and enslaved anyone they could capture. The Concordat had been fighting them for decades, but there were too many hegemony ships and too few Concordat patrols to stop them all. Emma watched her screen as the two groups of ships moved toward each other. The hegemony squadron had 12 vessels, including 2 heavy battleships. They were some of the most dangerous warships in the galaxy. The unknown ships numbered only 5. "The raiders are going to destroy them," Emma said sadly. "Those unknown ships do not know what they are facing." But Captain Oliver was not so sure. Something about the energy readings from the mysterious vessels made him nervous. Their weapons were charging up, and the power levels were far higher than anything he had ever seen. "Emma, move us back to a safe distance," he ordered. "And start recording everything." The hegemony ships reached weapons range first. They opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending bright streams of deadly energy toward the unknown vessels. But the unknown ships did not try to run away. Instead, they charged straight at the raiders. What happened next made both Emma and Captain Oliver stare in shocked silence. The unknown ships returned fire with weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. The energy beams were so powerful that they cut through the hegemony shields like they were made of paper. One of the raider battleships exploded in a ball of fire so bright that Emma had to cover her eyes. In less than 30 seconds, the entire hegemony squadron was destroyed. 12 of the galaxy's most feared warships had been turned into floating scrap metal by 5 mysterious vessels that looked like they were built in someone's garage. Captain Oliver's mouth hung open. "That is impossible," he whispered. Then the communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke in heavily accented Galactic Standard, the universal language used by all civilized species. But this accent was strange, rough and unfamiliar. "This is Admiral Jack of the Terran Defense Force," the voice said. "Kepler Station, you are safe now. The raiders who attacked our colony ships have been dealt with." Emma and Captain Oliver looked at each other in confusion. "Terran?" Emma asked. "What does that mean?" Admiral Jack continued speaking. "We know you have been watching our home system for many years. We know you think we are primitive. You were wrong. We have been among the stars for 8 decades, building colonies and protecting our people while you ignored us." Captain Oliver grabbed the communication device with shaking hands. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Oliver of Kepler Station. Please identify your species and explain your presence in Concordat space." A different voice answered, younger, with the same strange accent. "Captain, we are humans from the planet Earth in Sector 7749 Delta. The sector you marked as no threat and stopped monitoring 50 years ago." Emma gasped. She remembered that sector from her training. It was listed as a primitive world with a pre-spaceflight species. "That is impossible," Captain Oliver transmitted. "Our records show your species has not developed faster than light travel." Admiral Jack's voice came back, and this time he sounded amused. "Your records are very wrong, Captain. We achieved faster than light travel in the year 2157. We have 47 colonies, a fleet of over 300 warships, and we have been cleaning up your raider problem while you had meetings about it." The communication ended. The 5 human ships turned and disappeared into hyperspace, leaving only the burning remains of the Hegemony Squadron behind. Emma stared at her empty screen, her coffee growing cold in her forgotten cup. Everything the galaxy thought it knew had just changed forever. Admiral Kate stood on the command bridge of the TDF flagship Thunder, looking out at the most important meeting in galactic history. Through the massive viewing window, she could see 12 elegant alien diplomatic ships floating in perfect formation around her vessel. The contrast was striking. Their ships looked like pieces of art, all smooth curves and shining metal. Her ship looked like a flying fortress covered in weapons. The main conference room had been prepared for this moment. Admiral Kate wore her best uniform, dark blue with silver stars on her shoulders. She was not tall, but her presence filled the room. Her brown hair was pulled back severely, and her green eyes were calm but watchful. Across from her sat Ambassador Blake, the same official who had filed reports about humanity for decades. His green skin had turned pale since arriving on the human ship. Next to him were representatives from 8 other major species, beings with fur, feathers, scales, and stranger features that Kate had studied for years. "This is completely impossible," Ambassador Blake said, his voice shaking slightly. "Our monitoring stations confirmed that your species was pre-spaceflight as recently as 50 years ago. You were using primitive chemical rockets." Admiral Kate smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. "Ambassador Blake, do you know what we call those monitoring stations?" "Blind spots." She activated a holographic display that showed the space around Kepler Station. Red dots marked the positions of human ships, hundreds of them, forming a perfect defensive grid that the station's sensors had never detected. "We have been right next to your outposts for decades," Kate continued. "Your people file reports about empty space while our supply convoys pass within a few thousand kilometers of your sensors." The bird-like Ambassador Lucy spoke up, her feathers ruffled with confusion. "How is this possible? Our detection technology is the most advanced in the galaxy." "Your detection technology looks for the energy signatures of civilized ships," Kate replied. "You expect clean fusion reactors, elegant shield harmonics, and sophisticated computer systems. You never thought to look for crude but effective technology." She gestured to Captain Tom, who stood at attention nearby. He was a big man with scars on his hands from years of ship maintenance. "Captain, please explain our stealth systems to our guests." Captain Tom stepped forward. "It is simple, really. While you were building perfect ships, we built practical ones. Our reactors are shielded with materials that absorb sensor waves instead of reflecting them. Our engines run cold when we want to hide. And we learn to move through areas of space where your sensors do not usually look." Ambassador Blake's mandibles clicked nervously. "But the development time, the resources, it should have taken your species centuries to achieve faster than light travel." Admiral Kate walked to another display showing human colonies scattered across dozens of star systems. "We achieved faster than light travel in 2157, 83 years ago. While your computers predicted we would not leave our planet for 500 years, we were already establishing our first colonies." The display zoomed in on various human settlements. Some were on beautiful Earth-like worlds with blue skies and green forests. Others were on harsh planets with domed cities and underground farms. All of them were thriving. 4 to 7 colonies, Kate said proudly. Over 60 million human beings living among the stars. We have miners, farmers, scientists, and shipbuilders working on worlds you never knew were inhabited. A reptilian diplomat named General Marcus hissed softly, "Why did you remain hidden?" Most species announce themselves when they achieve space travel. Kate's expression grew serious. "Because we were watching you. And we did not like what we saw." The room fell silent. Kate activated another display, this one showing hegemony raiding fleets attacking defenseless colonies, slave ships carrying captured beings to work camps, and Concordat patrol ships arriving too late to help. For 80 years, we watched the hegemony empire grow stronger while the Concordat held meetings about it, Kate said. We saw entire species enslaved while your diplomats debated trade agreements. We counted 23 genocides that could have been prevented if someone had acted instead of talking. Ambassador Blake looked uncomfortable. The Concordat believes in peaceful solutions. We cannot simply attack. We can, Kate interrupted. And we did. The display changed to show the recent destruction of hegemony fleets. Dozens of their warships had been destroyed in coordinated strikes across multiple systems. The attacks were surgical, precise, and devastatingly effective. In the past 6 months, we have eliminated 70% of the hegemony's raiding capacity, Kate continued. We have liberated 14 enslaved worlds and established protection agreements with 32 independent colonies that your Concordat was too busy to help. Captain Tom added, "Our shipyards have been building warships for 40 years. While you thought we were playing with chemical rockets, we were designing vessels specifically to fight the enemies you were afraid to face." The alien diplomats looked at each other with expressions of shock and fear. Their perfect, peaceful galaxy had been turned upside down by a species they had completely underestimated. "What do you want from us?" Ambassador Blake asked quietly. Admiral Kate turned back to face them. "We want you to understand that the galaxy has changed. The age of endless meetings while innocent beings suffer is over. Humanity is now a major power, whether you like it or not." She walked closer to the diplomatic table. "We are not asking to join your Concordat. We are telling you that we already exist as your equals. Our colonies are established. Our fleets are operational. Our alliances with liberated worlds are permanent." General Marcus shifted uneasily. "And if we refuse to recognize your claims?" Kate's smile returned, but this time it was genuinely amused. "General, you are sitting on a human warship surrounded by a human fleet in space controlled by human forces. The question is not whether you will recognize us. The question is whether we will continue to treat you as friends." Through the viewing window, the lights of human patrol ships could be seen moving through space in perfect formation. The galaxy would never be the same again. Captain Tom watched the battle unfold on his command screen with grim satisfaction. His strike force of 12 human warships had just dropped out of hyperspace above 3 enslaved worlds in the hegemony's core territory. The alien populations below had been suffering under hegemony rule for over 50 years. "All ships, this is Captain Tom," he spoke into his communication device. "Remember the plan. Hit fast, hit hard, and leave nothing standing that can hurt innocent people." His flagship, the Liberty, was not the largest ship in the human fleet, but it was one of the most feared. Unlike the elegant vessels preferred by other galactic powers, the Liberty looked like a flying weapon. Its hull was covered in armor plating, missile launchers, and energy cannons that could punch through any known shield system. The hegemony defenders were not prepared for what happened next. Most galactic warfare followed strict rules that had been agreed upon centuries ago. Battles began with formal challenges transmitted between opposing fleets. Ships would line up in neat formations and exchange fire at respectable distances. Civilian areas were declared off-limits. Surrender was always accepted. Casualties were kept to a minimum. Humans had never agreed to any of those rules. Captain Tom's ships appeared from hyperspace already firing. They did not announce themselves or demand surrender. They simply began destroying every hegemony military installation they could find. The attack was so sudden and violent that most of the enemy ships were turned into scrap metal before their crews could even reach their battle stations. On the planet's surface, hegemony ground forces tried to organize a defense. Their commanders had dealt with Concordat liberation attempts before, polite affairs where opposing armies met in open fields and fought according to established protocols. The humans did not fight that way either. Instead of landing troops in the traditional manner, human forces struck from orbit with pinpoint accuracy. They used weapons that could level a military base while leaving a hospital next door completely untouched. Hegemony commanders found their headquarters destroyed, their supply depots blown up, and their communication centers turned to ash, all within the first hour of the attack. General Marcus, the Hegemony's regional commander, tried to contact the human fleet from his underground bunker. Unknown human forces, this is General Marcus of the Hegemony Defense Corps. I demand you follow proper protocols of engagement. Civilian populations must be protected during military operations. Captain Tom's response was broadcast not just to the general, but to every communication device on all 3 planets. General Marcus, this is Captain Tom of the Terran Defense Force. We have one protocol: stop hurting innocent people or we will stop you permanently. The general was confused. In his experience, civilized warfare involved negotiations, prisoner exchanges, and gradual territorial gains. Captain, surely we can discuss terms. The Concordat has established procedures for. We are not the Concordat, Captain Tom interrupted. We do not hold meetings while people suffer. Surrender now and your soldiers will be treated fairly. Continue fighting and they will be defeated. General Marcus had commanded Hegemony forces for 30 years. He had never lost a battle against Concordat peacekeepers, who always seemed more interested in avoiding casualties than winning wars. You cannot defeat the might of the Hegemony with only 12 ships. What happened next became legendary throughout the galaxy. Human ships did not stay in one place long enough for enemy forces to target them effectively. They would appear, unleash devastating firepower, and vanish back into hyperspace before return fire could reach them. When Hegemony reinforcements arrived from nearby systems, they found only empty space and the wreckage of their destroyed bases. But the humans were never really gone. They were simply hiding in the asteroid fields, gas clouds, and debris fields that other species considered too dangerous or unimportant to patrol. From these hidden positions, they could strike anywhere in the system within minutes. Captain Tom's communications officer, Lieutenant Emma, had been transferred from Kepler Station after the first contact incident. She monitored enemy transmissions as the battle continued. Captain, they are sending distress calls to every Hegemony fleet in the sector. Good, Captain Tom replied. Let them come. We have friends waiting for them. What the Hegemony did not know was that this attack was only one part of a much larger operation. While General Marcus was focused on the 3 worlds under attack, human forces were simultaneously striking Hegemony positions across dozens of systems. Every major military base, supply depot, and command center in the region was being hit at exactly the same time. The coordination required for such an operation was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Most species needed months of planning and preparation for a single major battle. Humans had launched 50 simultaneous attacks across multiple sectors with perfect timing. By the end of the first day, the 3 enslaved worlds were free. By the end of the first week, the entire Hegemony presence in that region of space had been eliminated. The rescued populations found themselves under human protection, but not human rule. Captain Tom stood in the main square of the largest liberated city, speaking to gathered crowds of grateful aliens through translation devices. Behind him, human soldiers were distributing food, medical supplies, and communication equipment to help the freed peoples contact their scattered families. You are not our subjects, Captain Tom told them. You are our allies. We offer protection, not conquest. We ask only that you treat your neighbors with the same respect we have shown you. The crowd cheered in 12 different languages. Many of them had never expected to see freedom again. But across the galaxy, in Concordat meeting halls and Hegemony command centers, military leaders were studying recordings of the human attacks with growing alarm. These newcomers did not follow any recognized rules of warfare. They were unpredictable, devastatingly effective, and seemingly unstoppable. General Marcus, now a prisoner awaiting trial for war crimes, sat in his cell reviewing the reports. In 6 months of human operations, the Hegemony Empire had lost more territory than it had in the previous century of Concordat resistance. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Sometimes the most effective way to keep peace is to make war too costly for those who would break it. The Grand Assembly had never hosted anything like this meeting. Admiral Kate walked slowly down the center aisle of the massive chamber, her boots echoing in the silence. Above her, thousands of representatives from across the galaxy sat in curved rows that stretched up toward a domed ceiling painted with stars. Every species in the Concordat was present. The bird-like Altarians sat with their colorful feathers perfectly groomed. The reptilian Draconians coiled in their special heated seats. The insect-like Mantids watched with their compound eyes glittering in the light. Beings of every shape, size, and color filled the chamber. But all eyes were on the single human woman walking toward the speaker's platform. Admiral Kate had changed since the first contact meeting 6 months ago. Her uniform was still simple and practical, but now it carried decorations from dozens of liberated worlds. Around her neck hung a chain made from metals found on every human colony, a reminder of how far her species had spread while the galaxy looked the other way. She reached the central platform and turned to face the assembled delegates. Her voice, when she spoke, was amplified throughout the chamber and broadcast to billions of beings across thousands of worlds. 6 months ago, you expected humanity to ask permission to join your galaxy, she began. You thought we would quietly take our place as junior members of your alliance and follow your rules without question. Ambassador Blake shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Next to him, other Concordat leaders looked equally nervous. The human fleet still surrounded the station where the assembly was meeting, a constant reminder that the balance of power had changed forever. Instead, we brought change, Admiral Kate continued. We brought the sound of thunder rolling across stars that had been silent too long. She activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of star systems marked in different colors. Red areas showed former hegemony territory. Blue marked Concordat space. But now there was a new color spreading across the map, gold, representing the Terran Alliance. 47 human colonies have become over 200 protected worlds, Kate said as the display zoomed in on various systems. 63 different species have asked for our protection rather than trust in your promises of eventual help. The display showed liberated planets where former slaves were rebuilding their cities. It showed independent colonies that had joined the Terran Alliance for protection against raiders. It showed trade routes that were now safely patrolled by human ships. General Marcus, representing the much-reduced hegemony empire, stood up from his seat. You have violated every law of civilized warfare. You attack without warning, show no mercy to defeated enemies, and refuse to negotiate. We show no mercy to slavers and murderers, Admiral Kate interrupted. We negotiate with honorable beings who want peace. The hegemony chose to be neither. She gestured toward a section of the chamber where dozens of representatives sat wearing simple clothes instead of fancy diplomatic robes. These were delegates from the liberated worlds, beings who had lived as slaves until human forces freed them. One of them, an elderly female from a species that looked like walking trees, stood slowly. I am Speaker Rose of the world you called Timber 7, she said in a voice like rustling leaves. My people were slaves for 80 years. We sent messages to the Concordat begging for help. The response was always the same, your situation is under review. Her wooden features hardened with anger. The humans did not review our situation. They ended it. In one day, they destroyed the camps where our children worked until they died. They gave us weapons to defend ourselves and ships to contact our scattered families. They asked for nothing in return except that we treat others with the same kindness. Similar testimonies came from across the chamber. A crystalline being whose people had been used as living computers. A gas-dwelling species whose worlds had been strip-mined for resources. A mammalian race whose young had been taken as soldiers for the hegemony armies. All of them told the same story. Decades of suffering while the Concordat debated. Freedom delivered by human forces who asked only for friendship in return. Ambassador Blake finally found his voice. Admiral Kate, we appreciate what you have done for these peoples. But surely you must understand that your methods have destabilized the entire galactic order. Wars have rules. Diplomacy has procedures. Without these structures, innocent beings died while you held meetings about helping them, Kate replied. Your galactic order was built on the suffering of those too weak to defend themselves. She walked closer to the Concordat section of the chamber. You had 1,000 years to solve the hegemony problem. 1,000 years to stop the raiders and slavers. Instead, you created bureaucracies that were more interested in maintaining stability than protecting lives. The chamber fell silent except for the distant hum of human ships patrolling outside. Through the massive windows, the delegates could see the running lights of Terran Defense Force vessels moving in perfect formation. Today, that changes, Admiral Kate announced. The Terran Alliance offers a new choice to every world in this galaxy. Join us in building something better, or continue with your old ways and watch us build it without you. She activated a new display showing patrol routes extending across previously lawless regions of space. Our ships will continue protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Our colonies will continue offering homes to refugees from oppression. Our alliance will continue growing stronger because we offer hope instead of paperwork. Captain Tom's voice came through the communication system from the fleet outside. "Admiral, we are receiving applications for Alliance membership from 18 more systems. They request immediate protection from hegemony reprisals." Admiral Kate smiled. "Tell them their protection begins now, Captain." She turned back to the assembled delegates. "This is the new thunder you will hear across the galaxy. Not the sound of conquest, but the sound of chains breaking. Not the noise of destruction, but the rumble of justice finally arriving." The chamber erupted in voices speaking dozens of languages. Some delegates cheered. Others argued angrily. Many sat in stunned silence as they realized their galaxy would never be the same. Outside, human engines roared as patrol fleets departed for distant systems where help was needed. The age of endless debate was over. The age of action had begun.